There's a lot of available land. There's a lot of available building space. There's a lot of available home sites. And what's coming back in Panama City is an engine for growth in our area because of the economic push from all these folks who are moving in here. If you're looking to move here and grow, you can do that. If you're looking to move here and retire, you can do that as well. And if you're looking to open up multiple income streams, there's no better area right now, in my opinion, than right here on the beach.
This episode brought to you by Suites at Madison. Meeting and conference rooms for rent by the hour, week, month, or year. Suites at Madison, where business gets done. Check them out at www.downtowntampaoffice.com. Now, on to the show.
You are listening to the Invest Florida Real Estate Show, covering topics in lending, buy and sell strategies, property management, hot markets, and tips and tools to guide you along the way on your path to real estate success. You want Florida investment real estate talk? You have come to the right place. And now, our hosts, Eric Odom and Stephen Silverman.
Today we have with us Double Trouble from the Panhandle in Florida. We have John Roberts and Stephen Barber. Both of them are attorneys in the law office of John W. Roberts. John graduated from the University of Miami, and his work is primarily in litigation. He's also a real estate investor. Stephen graduated from the Law School of Florida State University, and he works in diverse areas of real estate. There's a lot going on in the Panhandle, and guys, welcome to the Invest Florida show. We're eager to hear what's going on up there.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
You know, guys, we discussed before we started recording how rare it is to have folks in the Panhandle, and it's just so excited to hear this conversation today. But more importantly, I think we start from the beginning. How in the world did a Florida State and a UM grad get together and don't end up killing each other?
We don't talk football, believe it or not. I'm an Auburn guy at heart, and Stephen has no real dog in the fight. So it kind of is what it is.
I think Norvell's got us pointed in the right direction, which I'm sure is why John's a little hesitant to talk more about it. But kidding aside, as you mentioned, I went to Florida State. When I first started looking around for gigs for after law school, I was, of course, looking, in my hometown of St. Petersburg and Tampa area, but I also looked, oddly enough, in the Panhandle because of a good mentor of mine. We'd come out here for a couple cases and argue some motions. So I applied, I got in. I've since moved from that office to move here with John, and I couldn't be happier. And while I've been here, my work it's always been varied. But now we focus a lot more on not just the litigation element of real estate transactions, which there's plenty. Trust me, people get mad about all kinds of things, but as well as the transactional side. So, drafting contracts, shepherding things through the development process, making sure everybody's got their permits and approvals from the relevant county entities and things like that. So that's kind of a little bit about how I got here. And I'll let John, I'll defer to him as far as how he ended up in this neck of the woods.
No, I think Stephen gave you a pretty good background on himself. Mine is perhaps a little more circuitous. The idea was I ended up coming down here from Nashville, Tennessee. My family's been here in this area for a long, long time. My grandfather originally bought here on something called Soldiers Beach when they still had the opportunity for soldiers who were coming home from World War II and from Korea to purchase low-cost land on the beach, because at that point, if you couldn't grow peanuts or cotton or run cattle on it, it didn't make much sense to own it. And so the government was selling off essentially patent deeds for anyone who was willing to take the land and put it to some good use. My mother and father kept us coming down here during that period. Growing up in North Alabama, it was just far enough away to feel like a vacation. And then after several years in stints with large law firms in both Birmingham and Nashville and running my own shop, I decided to make a permanent move and get into this area. And we began to feel some of the tremors of demographic growth as we got here. And it felt like the right time to bring a small family and start over in a much more quiet environment that is now taken off kind of like a rocket ship for growth purposes. There's some things that people don't really understand about our counties and the way that they work up here. We stretch from the waters of the Gulf all the way to the state line in Alabama. And in some places that can be as much as 60 or 70 miles from northern tip to southern point. And in some counties, we're 35 and 40 miles wide going from east to west. You've got counties that extend all the way from Escambia, where Pensacola is, all the way to Bay County, where Panama City is. But there's a lot of forgotten area in between there that most people assume whether rightly or wrongly, is simply just an adjunct of Alabama that Florida seemed to somehow keep hold of. There's an apocryphal tale that Florida offered up the Panhandle at one point to Alabama and to Georgia, and they both said no to their own detriment. I will tell you that our little community, and Eric, I think this is something that most people will need to hear about our particular county, which is Walton County. Walton County, I think, is the 6th largest county in the state of Florida. We exist from, I think, a population standpoint, about 75,000 people. I think the demographic in our area, or the internal county studies, show that we will probably double our population in the next 10 years. And there's a very real possibility that we'll exceed some very large numbers that even some of the folks in Walton County would not believe. We have a great deal of name recognition in most of the southeastern states, and it's starting to grow as our Tourist Development Council has done what I would call an absolutely fantastic job of spreading the gospel of what's here and what's available all across the country. And in doing so, have made our area available to some people that frankly just didn't know that we existed before. But I will tell you that I think the biggest thing that I can tell you about our area, it is generational. Your grandfather came here, your father and mother came here, you're going to come here, and your kids will come here if you're in the Southeast. Everywhere you go around here, you'll see little stickers, and all over the Southeast, they're blue stickers with white writing with a yellow sun in the middle that say 30A. And 30A is a 26-mile county highway that extends from Rosemary Beach on the far east side all the way to almost Miramar Beach on the far west side, and it runs directly along the Gulf Coast. And we've also implemented some rules via our land development code and our comprehensive plan here that there are to be no skyscrapers that block the view of the beach. And so what you have, while not perfectly unimpeded, is at least shots of the ocean, as it extends to the Gulf from basically tip to tip. And what that creates is this wonderful slice of heaven where you have white sand that's visible as you drive down this highway. Now, we are having some infrastructure problems because more people have discovered this place, but for 100 years, this was a place where everybody came and spent a week during the summers, and everyone who's been here understands what it is. We are starting to attract some significant investment from outside our rural South, and, tales of folks that are coming in from other places who have discovered how easy it is to get in here, especially to our Panama City and Destin airports that are growing as fast as, frankly, most airports should be able to. There's a lot of talk that the Panama City airport will double in size over the course of the next 10 years as well. But we're also being led by something called the St. Joe Company. And St. Joe, frankly, has made one of the wisest, I think, investments over a number of years and have put together something that essentially is a 50-year plan that they've put into effect. And I encourage anyone who wants to come to this area that really wants to invest to become very familiar with what we call the Baywalt sector plan. And Eric, I'm going to give you an opportunity to ask some more thought-provoking questions rather than me just prattling on. But one thing that I do want to say about that is the Baywalt sector plan, named after both Bay and Walton County that are adjacent counties here in the Panhandle, hopes to create somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, Stephen, 140,000 homes over the course of the next probably 25 to 30 years, which will not shockingly change the dynamic landscape of this area in a way that I don't think most areas have seen in hundreds of years. So I think the growth here is going to be astronomical. In doing that, we're going to have to create, both the infrastructure that we need, but also the commercial spacing and, opportunities for people to have working environments that work for them as well as they become untethered and move to this area.
What is driving the economy, John?
Right now, it's tourism. There's not a whole lot of industry in the southern part of our county. Our Walton County commissioners have done what I believe to be a fairly extraordinary job of creating industry in the north of the county. And what we have here is essentially raw land that exists north of what we call Definiak Springs. That's about a 30-mile corridor that runs into some towns like Darlington and Paxton and all the little smaller communities that exist in the north. So there are some, areas of economic depression that need to be addressed, but our county commission is doing a very good job of finding large resources to meet the population centers. And then we have a smaller, what I would call a bedroom community called Freeport that exists just north of the Choctawhatchee Bay that is going through one of the great Renaissance movements, as much as it's hard to say Freeport and Renaissance in the same sentence. It is blooming and blossoming, and it's a place for workforce housing and for those that are being displaced from what is turning into a tourist center down on the beach. Now, a lot of what's happening for us and what we're seeing more than anything else is folks who are coming here for a way of life or a lifestyle. What they're having happen is they are becoming untethered. They're working remotely. And I think the pandemic probably was the kickoff point for that. Once people began to see that they could work from anywhere and that their jobs wouldn't go away, they thought to themselves, I think, much like I did, where would I live if it didn't matter where I lived? And my first thought was the beach. One, because it provides access and it has, deeply rooted good memories for families. But it also seems like a great place for families to come and have a slower pace of life. And I'll tell you, our schools here are extraordinary. Our county commission and our school board are absolutely top notch. They are positions that are not easy to come by and frankly coveted. And the folks who take those jobs, I think, take their jobs extremely seriously and have the good of the county at heart, which is difficult to do in larger population centers. But you also have direct access to the people who can affect change, which puts us in a position to be able to say, you can come here and you can make a difference and you can build the life you want without having to fight all the red tape that you might find or fight in other places.
It might be a good idea for us to provide the listeners with a background on what John's portfolio is, because not only are John and Stephen involved on the legal side of real estate development, but they both are investors, and John has a pretty substantive portfolio. So we understand where you're coming from an experience standpoint with your portfolio.
I think the biggest thing that I would tell you is, I'm no expert beyond the idea that I've done it, made enough stupid mistakes to have gotten an education that I couldn't have gotten any other way. When I moved here, one of the things that my wife and I decided was that we were going to find some investments that made us feel good because we could walk inside them and we understood who the tenants were and we understood what the ROI was and we understood what we might be called to account for at some point. And we also felt like this area was particularly poised to grow both from a commercial standpoint, but also from a residential real estate standpoint. And we found that out because when we tried to move here, Eric, one of the hardest things for us to do was to find an actual rental home. Now, if you find yourself in a market where you have to sign a lease over the hood of a U-Haul truck because no one had any houses that were lasting longer than 12 hours on the market, we knew that if there was residential housing and that housing could be rented, it was going to produce a fantastic ROI. And that project or that pressure on a downward spike came from the fact that we're surrounded by military bases here, which means we have a ton of housing that's dedicated to, folks that are going to move in and move out. There's not a lot of rental homes that are available here that are, worthwhile or good for families because the majority of the rental properties are done on a weekly basis. And nobody wants to try to move a young family of 4 into a $6 million home on the Gulf and pay $9,000 or $10,000 a week. So we had a lot of downward rental pressure. We recognized fairly early on that this would be a great place to own rental property. What we didn't expect, frankly, was the lack of commercial rental property that would be available. And when I opened my law office, what I found was that I spent a lot of time finding things that other people couldn't find. Namely, the idea that it was hard to find information on what was actually available. And so we decided that we were going to become, a one-stop shop for information on what actually was available from a commercial standpoint, because that would help my law practice and help, kind of burnish my reputation. But also because we had to pivot away from some things that were extremely successful for us in Nashville. One of the things that we learned very quickly was you move to the market, you had better learn what the market is very, very quickly. And so I began picking up commercial real estate and holding it, renting it out, rehabbing it, sold off a few things and realized that holding on to it made more sense until we got into a market like the one we currently have. And I've built up a sizable portfolio now of commercial rentals that stretch from Destin all the way over to Panama City. And frankly, got to a point where I spent enough time with a business partner saying there's not enough Class A commercial space that we finally decided to go ahead and build it. And so we bought up 6.5 acres on our main thoroughfare here on Highway 98 and put up 35,000 square feet worth of commercial Class A rental property where I reserved a small spot for my office. And so we've put ourselves in a position now to not have any sort of a grip on the market, but at least to understand it and know it. And from that grew a real estate brokerage that was predicated on nothing more than I had access to information that other people did, but I had access to legal knowledge and background, and also the willingness to burn the boats and go with whatever came next as we came through this area. And in doing so, I've built up a real estate brokerage that allows me to buy and sell. And identify deals before other people can too. So that's a nice adjunct for our law firm.
Now, is it mostly retail, John?
A lot of it is just going to be standard office because people move here. And what happens is, a family of 4, family of 5 will move into a lovely home that they've just purchased that St. Joe has proffered or it's been put up by one of the local builders here. And the, folks who are employed try to work from home. And what they find is that office environment simply doesn't work for them at the house. And so they need small office space. And in doing so, their companies are willing to foot the bill because our costs here are substantially lower than they would be in major cities. And so what we're finding is the rates are exemplary for our area compared to what they are in most of the major cities. But our cost of building and our cost of holding are substantially lower than most of the big cities as well.
Why would your cost of building be lower? Is it the labor cost primarily because the materials you're paying the same?
We do have a lower labor cost here, or at least it seems that way based on the buildings that I've done. And I've built residential houses and commercial spaces and rehabbed them over the course of the last probably 8-9 years. I'll tell you one of the biggest things too is this is an area where reputation is king. And if you do a good job, you'll be flooded with work and you can name your price for a lot of your labor. The unfortunate part of our area is a lot of our labor is transient. So if there's something better to be had in Jacksonville or Tampa, those workers will move on. But this is a great place where if you know somebody, you can pick up the phone and call them and get something done fairly quickly. And a lot of our general contractors have been here for a number of years and are able to put together great pricing on their products.
So let's move on to the next part now. As you've progressed and built up the portfolio, where do you see the growth happening now?
Most of the growth is going to be happening on the eastern portion of Walton County and the western portion of Bay County. And I think what I would tell you first is that there is a great deal of 55 and older housing that's moving into this area. It's being built out at a place called Latitudes. It's a Margaritaville resort that's being built. There are a number of 55 and older communities that are popping up everywhere. I think the wait list, the last time I heard, and I haven't verified this, so take it with a grain of salt, but I think it was 1,500 homes on a waiting list to have a home built in Latitudes, which is an extremely long time. If you think about those tract builders, our airport, of course, is not very far from where those buildings are going in. And the infrastructure that is coming alongside it is fairly robust as well. We have the largest Publix in the state of Florida going in not too terribly far from where our law office and new commercial spaces are going in. Most of the far eastern edge of Walton County is about to go through the roof because they're putting a large bridge across the intercoastal here that will shorten the time from the airport from being roughly 45 minutes down to maybe 20 or 25 minutes, which means getting here gets a whole lot easier. Most people are able to drive down here and they come through either 231 or 331 out of Alabama and Georgia, which are, no great shakes as far as highways. But once that growth opens up, most people will be able to fly in here fairly easily. And with the low-cost fares to get from anywhere in the southeast down here, it makes sense for most of those people to station themselves here and fly back and forth if they have to go to their jobs.
I was thinking as you were talking, probably one of the best commercials for the Panhandle has been Spring Break, like everybody knows.
You know what? It's funny that you say that because we had such a problem with Spring Break over the course of the last probably 15 years that, believe it or not, alcohol is banned on the beaches in a majority of the counties down here. And so what happens is all of those folks that used to come here, because Panama City was an enormous spring break location, and most of the the kids that would come down here would go to, the big bars on the beach in Panama City Beach, like Spinnaker's or any of those, Club La Vela. Those bars don't exist in the same way anymore. And so we're seeing a lot more families who are willing to come here during the spring break who are trying to escape the things that are going on in their major cities now.
They're all coming to Tampa.
Yeah, you can have them in Daytona. So, but by and large, there isn't that spring break. We just simply don't have that anymore. And most of the rental homes here, especially in the large HOAs, they're doing things like, for the first time in our history, I think they're booting in a place called Watercolor. And so if you're parked in a not so great space, they'll simply tow you. And the last thing that you really want to happen in Walton County is to be towed all the way to Definiak Springs and be drunk on the beach in Watercolor. That would be a terrible, terrible thing to have happen to you.
I had a question for Stephen. Stephen, what distinguishes the Panhandle from the rest of the state in regard to this real estate market? I know Miami's hotter than a pistol. We have in the I-4 corridor is hotter than a pistol. And I know a lot of our listeners are migrating, in search of deals. And so I'm curious what's happening in the Panhandle that maybe you can compare the rest of the state and give people kind of a feel for what's going on here as opposed to the rest of the rest of the Panhandle or the rest of the peninsula.
Sure. So, off the bat, what jumps out at pretty much everybody, I would say, that distinguishes the Panhandle in our area from, any of those larger population centers like you just mentioned, whether it be Tampa or Orlando, is the population density here. Obviously, there's just less people as things stand, but that's changing pretty quickly. As I think John had alluded to before, there's quite a few people who are moving here. I think I had seen last I saw, there was about 1,000 people a day who were moving to Florida in general. A lot of those people got to go somewhere, right? According to internal county projections, the population of just Walton County itself, not counting Bay or Okaloosa or any of the other sort of areas in this region, is going to either double or perhaps triple in size over the course of the next 10 years. And things like the Baywalt sector plan that John had mentioned before are contributing to that. So as far as, what distinguishes us, like I said, it's, as of right now, there's not quite as many people, but that's changing pretty quickly. And I think that presents a good ground floor, if you will, investment opportunity for folks who are looking to get into the real estate market here, because it's not quite as saturated, whether it be just, residential housing or commercial space, like John mentioned, or even just, places for, goods and services, businesses. It's not as saturated as it is in where I came from in St. Petersburg.
Let's talk a little bit about an investor from outside of your area. It would be tough for them to try to replicate. It sounds like what John's doing, which is the office space market. But if you were on the outside looking in, knowing what you know about the market, either one of you can take this question, but where would you be focusing your efforts from an investment standpoint, knowing that most of it's in residential? Are there still opportunities in residential? Is it in VRBO, Airbnbs? Is it long-term or medium-term rentals for military? Or where do you see opportunities for folks outside of your area?
So I could go, and then John could maybe, clean up the rest. As far as, investment opportunities, to your many questions, my answer would be yes. Simply, I think there's an opportunity for all of those, different markets, whether it be, like you said, for folks who are here in the military. As John mentioned, there's 2 military bases. There's Tyndall over near PCB, Panama City Beach, and then, of course, Eglin over in Okaloosa County. Those are growing, and those people need somewhere to go. They need somewhere to live. Of course, there's also people who are moving here like me, who moved here to take a job, because they saw, an opportunity to get in on this sort of, kind of ground floor, like I had mentioned before. So there's residential space as well. Right now, I think in the south end of specifically Walton County, it is a little bit higher end. So you're going to see it's more of like kind of vacation custom homes being built. And there is an opportunity for sort of multiple bedrooms, like a 10 bedroom. I think over here in Miramar Beach, there was just like a 6 townhome development that was being built, which actually caused a little bit of consternation because some of the local residents were a little annoyed that yet another development was going up, which is going to house all these vacationers from out of town. But like I said, there's a growing portion segment of the population of people who are here all year round. And as John said, word's getting out. So people are coming here to visit as well. So I think that there's opportunities for both, that sort of short-term rental market, that long-term rental market, whether it be for folks in the military or otherwise. And then, of course, residential, as well. And then, of course, there's going to have to be commercial space. These people, they go shopping, they, go out to eat, they go get haircuts. So there's going to have to be space for that as well. So I think that there's plenty of growth opportunities here. But like you said, not everybody's John, right? Not everybody can just come down here and make it on their own. So I think that one of the great opportunities that our firm provides is that sort of local know-how. For instance, I wouldn't say that it's quite as difficult as I've heard rumored. Like, for instance, like in the Florida Keys, it can be relatively difficult to develop there, from what I understand. But here, I do think that your out of town investor, somebody who wasn't familiar with the area, might be taken a little off guard by some of the more well developed, shall we say, regulatory apparatus surrounding the development code and the comprehensive plan, as John alluded to before. So I think that one of the things that makes this area so appealing, obviously, like the rest of Florida, is we're very proud of our beaches and our natural resources, but our local governments take conservation very seriously. So having, our office to kind of, help shepherd, an out-of-town investor through that process and, the connections that we have here, the folks that we're familiar with, would certainly be beneficial to anybody who is looking to invest. But to answer your question, Eric, to wrap it up, yes, I think that there's plenty of opportunity in all those sectors.
And is that from development or just outright buying?
Well, I think what I'll do is I'll tell you this. We have an extraordinary grasp in this county on the things that we do have. And one of the things that I'll tell you is everything south of Chalkahatchee Bay has been either preserved in what we call the forestry department, the ag department. We have 40% of the entire south end that's been preserved as state forest. And so we have green as far as the eye can see. And one of the things that's jarring when we travel to other places is we simply don't have billboards here the same way that other people do. It really are the primary color. It really is the primary colors of green, blue, white, and then the asphalt. That's what we have here. And there's forest on both sides of the road. So it's a very clean community. One of the things that I would point you to as well is we've kind of run out of dirt here on the south end. So development has become very, very difficult. Now, once the crash happened, it took its economic toll here like it did everywhere else. But we had some tract builders who came through here and put up some product. And, D.R. Horton is one of the big tract builders that's here hot and heavy, along with, some Adams Homes. And I think Pulte is coming into this area. And, one of the things that we see more than that is that now those homes that were being sold for, $350,000 to $400,000 are $1.2 million, $1.3 million on the market right now that were built, 6 years ago. With the understanding that the prices are high and that the plural of anecdote is not data, what I would tell you is we've run out of most of our buildable dirt on a residential basis. We have some left for development on a commercial basis. But by and large, let's look at this. A home that D.R. Horton put together in a subdivision here that's on 98 sold for roughly $400,000. I was involved in the transaction. That house, in turn, was renting for, I believe, $3,900 as of probably a month ago. Now, I don't want to have to do the quick math for you, but that's an extraordinary rate of return on that piece of property, especially when it was a non-custom built home that was finished over the course of about 90 days. That's happening over and over. That was my reaction to it as well. You can calculate your cap rate on that pretty quickly and know that it's a good one. And one of the things that I do is I work with a lot of folks that move to this area that are high net worth individuals who are coming from high tax states and low yield states that say, I want to get out of where I'm at. What can I do with this amount of money? And when I show them what that quote, this amount of money will do in this area and the rate of return, they almost instantly think I'm joking, or they ask to see the results. And once I put it on paper and ship it to them via email, they look at it again. And the next thing I hear generally is, we're booking a flight. We want to come see this area, because there's no way that you're able to produce what you're producing. And I think that is not any talent that Stephen or I have. That's simply the area is in growth mode right now. We're seeing some folks who come into this area from California, New York, and Utah and Texas who are escaping something. I don't know what the something is, but they want to be here. And when they bring their budget here, their budget outstrips what they ever thought they would be able to do. And so they're able to take a primary home that puts them in a location that they're very happy with, but also allows them to buy some rental and some income streams that they were not prepared to bring with them. And so it gives them kind of an easy rest. And I do want to go back to this and highlight this. Our school boards have done an outstanding job of trying to be forward thinking, but I think even their forward thinking has not allowed them to really appreciate the economic growth that's happening in this area and the number of people that are moving here, because a school that was finished a year and a half to 2 years ago called Dune Lakes Elementary School is already at and exceeding capacity by, I believe, 15 to 20% right now. And we need another elementary school 3 years ago. And so what you're seeing is a lot of pressure of people moving here who are seeing the way things are done here and how great they are. And it's very hard for someone to picture living through another Kentucky winter when we had an 80-degree Christmas day. So they're finding their way down here. It's the economic model, it's the societal model, it's the demographic model, and the fact that they've been coming here all these years and someone finally whispers in their ear over their shoulder, hey, you can live there full time and it will be just like it is when you're down here in the summer. And they find themselves in these places where they come from, Atlanta, Nashville, Birmingham, Jackson, Mississippi, Dallas. They come here because this is the place where they're happy. And when they see that they can be happy full time here, they tend to stay.
So, guys, I think you probably have to excuse Eric and I because we're both going to go pack our bags and see if we can get to Panama City. But if people want to reach you, do business, invest, learn a little bit about the area, what's the best way they can reach you guys?
You know, the easiest thing is to always pick up the phone. But for web addresses, my real estate brokerage is called Longleaf 30A. When you pick up the phone and you call Longleaf, you're going to find me, you're going to find my wife, Beth, you're going to find a number of our agents. The law office here is johnwrobertslaw.com, and that's johnwrobertslaw.com. And what you're going to find there is any of the number of lawyers that work in development, the first of which is Daniel Rosenheim. I work in development, and I spent 6 years on the planning commission for the county, and I think know it fairly intimately. Stephen's here to help with transactional work and also with litigation, and Tristan is here as well. And any of our paralegals will be able to kind of point you in the right direction. But the biggest thing is come sit down with us, have lunch with us. Let us explain the area to you, because if you've never been here and you've never gotten in the car and spent 2 hours driving around, it'll be difficult for you to grasp what's what. And also to remember that each small town has its own unique personality. And the biggest thing that you can do is learn where you fit rather than trying to make yourself be something that you're not. If you're looking to move here and grow, you can do that. If you're looking to move here and retire, you can do that as well. And if you're looking to open up multiple income streams, there's no better area right now, in my opinion, than right here on the beach.
Do you mind if I ask one more question before I let you go?
Absolutely.
For better, actually, for what I was going to say, for better or worse, is really for the worst. We'd be remiss to not talk about the fact that Pensacola and really to Panama City has become known to a lot of the rest of the country as a catcher's mitt for hurricanes. And I'm wondering how you guys are faring, what that's doing from an economic standpoint. Is it causing some movement of people in the area? And where do you see perhaps opportunities arising from that?
So I'm glad you asked that question. And one of the things that I want to point out is, and I personally went through this, I had a building in Panama City that was destroyed by Hurricane Michael a number of years ago. And what I would tell you is this. When Hurricane Michael came through and knocked over Panama City, it really did a number on the economic community. And a lot of people simply had to move away because there was nothing here for them to do while the city regrew. But what that's done is that's provided a launching pad for a lot of folks who care about the area, who really are interested in growing the area, to take down what was old and create new in its shape. And so what's happening is there's a lot of available land, there's a lot of available building space, there's a lot of available home sites. And what's coming back in Panama City is an engine for growth in our area because of the economic push from all these folks who are moving in here. They're able to create the new community in their own image, how they want it. And so instead of being able to say, well, it was the old Panama City, the old Bay County, the old Walton County, it's the new Walton County and the new Bay County that are starting to see growth. And what's happening by and large is that the folks who guided those towns and those particular counties for so long are starting to say, we welcome growth. We welcome the new folks that are moving here. We welcome new vision. And in doing so, we're getting some amazing things to start happening down here that I don't think I had ever seen. We're starting to get some real presence from some of the large retailers that are coming into this area for the first time. Like I said, the largest Publix in the state is moving in not too far from where we are. And as that growth goes, there will be more, town centers that are built up. And as those town centers grow, more people will move. And as more people move, more schools get built and more infrastructure is built. We're really poised for some really, I hate to call it elegant growth, but if the old adage is that this is the redneck Riviera, I think what's happening is we're poised for such an elegant growth because there was a clean slate at the perfect time when this all started to happen. And while there's no perfect time for any natural disaster, what there is an opportunity for us to grow with it and grow from it. And we're doing that right now.
And I guess as they're rebuilding, they're building to the new codes and
correct.
So it'll just be better and stronger.
Correct. And a lot of what's happening is just, frankly, an update. There's a lot of charm in downtown Panama City that was lost. But as it comes back, there's still a little bit of that charm that will be taken over, I think, in the long term by some folks who have maybe a forward vision for what it can be rather than just holding on to what it was.
And actually, I'll just add to that real briefly, John, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that we've been kind of fortunate in the sense that while, Hurricane Michael and others have been, there was a lot of devastation, don't get me wrong. But there has been a pretty good retention as these things go. Of course, there's going to be some folks who move out, but there's been a lot of folks who stayed as well, people that I know personally. And I think that that's an encouraging sign.
Perfect. Stephen, anything else before we let our friends go?
No, guys, we hope we'll be seeing you soon, but that was very illuminating. Thank you.
You're welcome, guys. Great to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having us.
You've just listened to the Invest Florida podcast with Eric Odom and Stephen Silverman. Join us every week for actionable real estate investment ideas, and of course, visit our website at www.investfloridashow.com for more shows and tips on how to earn a cash flow in the real estate market in Florida. While hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show have no reason to doubt the validity of comments of our guests, we do not warranty their accuracy. Please check with your legal, financial, and tax advisors before entering into any investment. Returns will vary from person to person and deal to deal based on unique circumstances. All information expressed in this show is for educational purposes only. Opinions of the guests are not necessarily shared by the hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show.